Hey guys, and welcome back to another video in this week's Java Data Structures tutorial. So in this video, as I promised, we're going to work on creating our own data structures. So this is actually a pretty big milestone because before this video, we've all been using like a library, like streams. We've been importing all of our things from something in Java, like our streams, our array lists, our hash maps. All of those have been using something pre-existing in Java, and we've kind of taken them for granted, right? We use them and we think it's pretty easy, just have to memorize my functions. Well, this is going to give you an eye-opening experience because we're going to create our own linked list by using nodes, and the nodes are going to be part of the node class that we make ourselves. So we're basically going to start from scratch and try to make the simplest versions of linked lists. So after this, you'll kind of be like, oh wow, I did not realize how complex making such a simple data structure was. So let's go ahead and get started. Creating our own linked list. Again, we talked about we're creating our simple linked list where we can connect the nodes. Each node is going to connect to the next because remember the definition of a linked list, how it's different from the other ones is it's in every separate container. The value is in its own container and each container connects to the next. Well, we can think of those kind of similar to nodes. And a strategy for when we actually go ahead and start creating it in our final step is that we're going to be working backwards, starting from the end node that ends with null. But that's just the future FYI. Right now, I want us to go ahead and take a look at these two pictures that I have here. This top picture is one that I drew myself, very pretty and very colorful. It's an example of a 2-item linked list with 2 nodes. And the node, every single node, I guess here how I want you to think about it. Every single node is split into 2 parts. The first part is data. So what is the data value of the node? The second part is next. And the next part of the node, as you can tell, is this little shaded part over here, this red shaded part. And all of the next values in the node linked to the next node. So this node over here has a data value of 1. Its next is linked to the next node, and the next node has a data value of 2. So when you string it all together and all of your next values lead to the next node, then it's going to end up being somewhat connected. And obviously your last node, because there's no nodes coming after it, it does not have a next value, so you give it a value of null. So that was my simple picture. You see how every single data, this is the first head node. It has data, it has next. Next points to this next data part of the node. So every single next part of the node points to the data value of the next node. And so in the end, you just see everything is connected. And that is the format of our linked list. It's okay if it doesn't make total sense right now, because it might make more sense as we start writing our code. I just wanted to give you a quick visual there. So I want to go ahead and start talking about creating our node class. This is a long time ago. In fact, if you aren't clear about the topic of classes and objects, I highly suggest you pause right now, go watch the videos on intro to classes, creating classes, constructors. I think constructors might be important because we are going to use a constructor in this video, and knowing what's going on is really going to help. So pause the video, go look those up, watch the video, and then come back to this one. Okay. So now that we know what everything is, we are going to start. So I'm going to walk through all of the written code here, and then we're going to go write it together. We create our class called node. Remember, we're out of the main class. We created a new file. It has 2 values, 2 integers, or not 2 integers, 2 variables. One of them is an integer called data, right? Remember back to the picture. One of them is an integer called data. The other one isn't going to be an integer or string. It's going to be a node. And it's going to be called next. So those are the 2 things, because every node has 2 parts, data and next. So this function, what we have here is our constructor. Our constructor is kind of like a special fancy function that is run and created every single time we create an instance of the node. And so that's going to take in 2 values, a data value and a next value, and it's going to assign the values that we pass in to the variables right over here. So when I create my node and then I say node x is equal to new node, and then in the parentheses I pass it, for example, 3 and then comma y, then 3 is going to be my data value, and then y is going to be my next value. Might not make too much sense right now. It's okay. We're still getting to it. The next two parts that I want to show you are the get functions. So we're going to be working with 4 more functions. And even though these functions sound scary, they're actually really simple. They all only do one thing, and they return or they set. So this is going back to data encapsulation. So that was another Java video that I made quite a while back. So again, if you're confused after I talk about get and set methods, pause the video, go and watch the encapsulation videos. Encapsulation, encapsulation, and then it'll make more sense. So we have our 2 functions, get data and get next. Why? Because we only have 2 variables here. So in order for us to use get and set methods, data is going to have a get method and a set method. Next is going to have a get method and a set method. So for our get functions, all we do is return. So we just return either the data or the next, simple as that. Our set methods, we do need to take in some sort of value. So we would set data, and then we would set the data equal to whatever value you pass in, and then set the next to whatever next value you pass in. So again, this is simple encapsulation. Remember, encapsulation is getting and setting. So yeah, let's go ahead and write some of our own code now. I'm going to go to Replit and create a new Java REPL. Create. I'm going to not write in my main class, right? We haven't done this in a while. I feel like ever since we've started our data structures, we've all been writing in main.java. Come here, create node.java. So in the last videos, we've been doing something.txt. Now we're doing node.java to specify that this is a Java file. Go ahead and create public class node. And we're going to give it first set 2 variables. And the first one's going to be an integer called data, a number. The second one is going to be a node that we're going to name next. So we have our 2 variables, which are the fundamentals of every single node. Remember, in the pictures that we've seen, all of our nodes are split in half. And then we're going to create node constructor, which is like our special fancy function. In my opinion, constructors are actually super duper powerful and one of my favorites. We're going to say public node, and it's going to take in a data value and a node for the next. And all it's going to do is it's going to say that whatever value you pass in as D here, well, your data value is not going to be that value. And whatever value you pass in as your node N, that's going to be your next value. So simple as that. We don't have to assign anything like node.data equals in our main Java. We can just do all of that as we're creating our node. So we've created our node constructor. Then we're going to create the get methods for data and next. So public data is an integer. So public int get data int D return D. Hold on, is this return D or data? I don't think it matters. We're not going to pass in anything here, guys. So we're not taking anything in here. Return data. And then we're going to do the same exact thing for my next. Public node get next. Return next. All this is going to do is when the time comes and we need to print out our data or print out our next, we are able to using these functions. Then we're going to create the set methods. Why are we creating set methods? Well, when the time comes and we need to set values to our methods, we are able to. Public void, we're not actually going to return anything here. Set data. Now we're doing int D, and then we're going to say data value is going to be whatever D value that we pass in. Public void set next, and not an int node. That's a capital N. Node N next is equal to N. Alrighty, so again, just to kind of sum it up here, we created our variables, we created the constructor, we created the methods that we're going to use when we want to get or like take the value from whatever data or next, and then we created the functions that we're going to be using for whenever we want to set values for data and next. So that was the nitty-gritty code part. Now it's time for us to create these actual instances and see how they connect to this picture here. In fact, in my PowerPoint, I want to bring this picture down here because really, this is essentially what's going on now. Hopefully, by the end of today, when you go and create your own linked list, you'll be able to draw a rough sketch diagram of what you just made. So we're going to go ahead and create our new nodes, and I'm going to write them out for you. I'm going to explain what this last line here means. Then we're going to sketch out a picture of what I did for my node. So I'm going to sketch my own version of this. So first, back to main.java again. If you don't understand what's going on, that's probably because you don't have a fundamental understanding of classes, objects, constructors, and encapsulation. So watch those videos, really they help. So we're going to say node x is equal to new node. Here I've created an instance. When I create an instance, because I made a constructor, so nice, I need to give it a data value and a next value. So here is where the working backwards starts. Instead of starting with this first node, since every node is connected, our next value should connect to the next node. But we need to work backwards because our first node, we can't connect it to another node because there currently are no nodes that exist. So we, in the end, connect it to null. We connect it to nothing. We connect it to nothing, but the data value can be any random number, say 18. So essentially, what this means is we've created our last node here. The node has a data value of 18, and since it's the last node, it doesn't have anything that comes next, so the next value is going to be null. So now that we have our last node, we can now create the node that connects to it, right? So this is why working backward is important, because then after you have your last node, you can create a node that connects to your last node. So we know this node is going to connect to the X node. The Y node is going to end up connecting to the X node. I can give it whatever data value I want. In this case, I can do 9 and then do a semicolon. So again, we've created this node at the end that connects to null. We've created this node Y that connects to this node X. Now let's take it one step further and create another node Z that connects to the node Y. So node Z is equal to new node, and then let's give it a data value, 31, and it's connected to Y. All right, so let's try our best to sketch a picture of this. So let me go ahead and take a screenshot, and then at least I'll be able to have a blank canvas for us to work with. So I'm snipping down to here. Now that I've snipped, I have the snipping tool. I can make it larger for you to see, and I'm going to start drawing for you. Hopefully, you can draw your own as well with me. So that's when I know that you really understand what's going on. So since we worked backward, we started off with our last node down here. Our last node down here had a data and a next. The next value was null. The data value was 18. So that is node Z. That is node Z. Node Z, then we created node Y. Here is our node Y. Node Y had a data value of a 9, and the next value here was connected to our Z node, and this is our Y node. And then we had node Z. So here's my node Z, which is split again into data. And oh wait, sorry guys, this is not node Z, this is node X. What am I doing? Okay, so we have node Z here, and the data value is 31, and the next part is connected, is linked to our Y. So look guys, this is a linked list. Where is my stylus when I need it? Okay, so does everybody see how I created my nodes and I was able to draw a diagram of what was going on? Again, everything started from our last node and we worked backwards. So that is essentially what was going on. I'm going to currently quickly minimize this picture. We're going to bring it back up in a second. I want to do one last thing. Down here, I'm going to say system.out.println, and I'm going to use my functions. I'm going to say, what should we use? Y.getNext. So first let's do Y.getNext. y.getNext is going to return me. What is it going to give me? Oh, pull up my snipping tool. y.getNext. Here is my y. So my y node is over here. What is the next value of y? Well, the next value, or in this case, the little squiggly red part is pointing to my x. So what does that mean, guys? That means that y.getNext, this is just going to turn into x. So since y.getNext is x, then I can run .get data on x. So again, just to rephrase that, y.getNext is going to point us to x. x.getData is going to point us to this 18 value. So when I go and run my code, I'm going to end up with a value of 18 because of our tic-tac-toe down here. Again, one more time, because I know this is confusing sometimes. y.getNext, from our picture, we know that what comes next after y is going to be x, the x node. And then since this part down here simplifies to x, this is basically equivalent to x.getData. And then x.getData is going to return us 18. So yeah, guys, that was our own linked list. We created our own linked list. We created our own data structure. 8 lessons in, we've been working with all sorts of data structures, except we all use like imported libraries and things like that. Well, now you can pat yourself on the back because we've just made our own. And you can probably tell now how it's kind of difficult, right? So the libraries aren't like easy breezy. It's kind of hard because we made something that was the simplest data structure there is. And it still took us some time to wrap our minds around it, right? So this video is a tough one. It is really confusing, I know. Watch it a couple more times if you're confused again. Videos that would really help with your conceptual understanding are the classes and objects, constructors, and encapsulation videos. They're all in the Java tutorials playlist. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video, and I will see you guys next week for our last intro Java data structures video. I'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.